There is always a good story happening in politics, and when good stories happen in politics, we want to dissect them with Philippe J. Fournier, our next guest. Of course, you know him from 338canada.com. He's a Macleans contributor. Philippe J. Fournier, thank you for coming on the show.
Good morning, Elias.
And by the way, I want to point out, what's the list? People Magazine's 50 sexiest people? What was the list you were just on?
Well, not the sexiest, although, I could, no, it's the...
the most influential, the power list. It's the most influential Canadians, right, from Macleans. That's the list.
I'm not sure I qualified, but they thought I did, so I'm flattered.
So Philippe J. Fournier, the man himself, listen, you were supposed to be on today, and we are going to talk about Premier Legault and how he's just crushing it in the polls, and we will get to that. But I'd be remiss if we don't react to what we just heard from the federal government on guns. Announcing their plans for a revamped gun legislation in Canada. And I said this on the air just a few minutes ago, Philippe, and tell me if I'm crazy or not. But to me, this tough on guns approach going to be very popular in Ontario and Quebec, and it puts Aaron O'Toole in a real pickle as he tries to get votes in Ontario and Quebec while keeping his base, that conservatives that are maybe a little bit more bigger fans of guns, happy. Is this one of the things in your brain that you're going through right now about the politics behind this decision?
Any politician that wants to stay in power for a reasonable amount of time, of any party, of any allegiance, any color, has to find some kind of a wedge issue to distinguish himself from his competition. And so I don't have it in front of me, but I remember very clear data from polling from Legault and the Industry Institute that showed that, yes, the gun ban, although it is not unanimous, but it's very popular, especially in urban Canada. And Aaron O'Toole has absolutely no shot at becoming prime minister if he doesn't make inroads in urban Canada, where Andrew Scheer could not, except for maybe Alberta, but could not win any seats in a significant fashion. And so, yes, I would say that although there's policy in there that's very interesting, but if you just look at the politics of it, this is a very smart move from the Liberals.
I'm just looking at, Aaron O'Toole, who's, socially has really made a pivot for the Conservative Party in the last few months on social issues. And now, right. So, it's clear he wants to go after those urban seats. And how do you do it if you're going to say, no, we can't, we shouldn't be tough on guns? How do you do it? Man.
Especially, I know that Valérie Plante, mayor of Montreal, talked about handguns, and that's a whole other issue. But the Liberals are basically saying you can have military-style weapons in your home, and we will buy them back. And so, if the Conservatives decide to go all in on this to defend not just gun owners, but owners that have military weapons at home, we will have a Liberal majority for the next decade in this country. And so this is, again, a wedge issue. It should not be a partisan, but of course they will make it so. So I'll be very interesting to see if pollsters decide to refield these questions to Canadians, because I would like to see that data.
And before we move on to provincial politics, Philippe, can you just give us the tea leaves right now? What's the latest that you've seen as to how a federal election would play out today?
Right now, we had the fresh numbers this morning from Legault that gives the Liberals a 7-point lead, 36-29. The O'Toole's Conservatives are stuck at this 30% bar that they can't seem to get over. And so right now, the most likely scenario would be a strong minority or a razor-thin majority for the Liberals. If these numbers hold, of course. But if there was an election tomorrow and these were the last numbers, I would call a Liberal win for sure. The Conservatives would be very lucky to surpass their seat total from 2019.
With Philippe J. Fournier from 338canada.com. He's a Macleans contributor. Philippe, let's turn our attention to provincial politics. I took great interest into some of your recent blog postings on provincial politics and Quebec politics and what would happen if we went to the polls. And it continues to show that François Legault, even if some people may have some issues over the handling of, COVID-19 and rules and restrictions and what happened in seniors' homes, he's still looking to be in fantastic position. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. Let's remember that in 2018, when François Legault and the CAQ won it for the first time in its history, it won with 37% of the popular vote, which was a reasonable, it's a good score, but Jean Charest was regularly in the 40s when he was a leader of the Quebec Liberals. But right now, the latest polling that we had from both Léger and Main Street showed the same numbers. Basically, the CAQ has the support of about half Quebec voters. And the Liberals are close to 30 points behind in second place. These numbers are historic. We haven't seen this in at least my lifetime. We know every time the Quebec Liberals take power, they stay on for a decade and then they take a dip and then they come back. Well, this is a really, really deep well that they found themselves into. The Quebec Liberals are last among Francophone voters. The CAQ leads Francophone voters by 40 points over the Parti Québécois. And so you look at these numbers and you break them down regionally and you break them down by demographics. The CAQ leads among men, among women, among all age groups. In every region of Quebec except the island of Montreal, where the Liberals still do well. Right now, if a Quebec election would be held right now, I would call between 90 and 100 seats for the CAQ. At the
90 to 100. Of the 125, they would get 90 to 100. And
that's right.
It seems, Philippe, that Premier Legault looks at maybe he read your blog post, he looked at that and he goes, not good enough. I'm pressing on the gas. I want even more. Because, the thing he did over the weekend on his Facebook with the post about freedom of expression, it seems like he wants to just suck all the oxygen from any other political party on red meat issues. Is that how you see it?
Well, that's one way to see it. I'm not sure. I don't disagree, but again, when we look at that poll, if you look at the polls just before the last election, of course, the CAQ is battling to win over voters that come mostly from the Parti Québécois. They did already win former Liberal voters, especially in the Quebec City region. But where was the Parti Québécois getting their vote? It was mostly baby boomers. And when you look at the 65 plus and over demographic from the last poll, the CAQ has completely siphoned away those voters away from the Parti Québécois. And so the Parti Québécois right now is third behind the Liberals, behind the CAQ among baby boomers. And we know that those boomers, they show up to vote. It's not like young people where some of them, they participate in lesser numbers, but they show up to vote. And, the Parti Québécois right now, even though they do have a new leader and he has some interesting ideas, my projection right now is 3 or 4 seats for the Parti Québécois. None in Montreal, none in Quebec City, none in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. You would have to go down in Bas-Saint-Laurent, Gaspésie to find the first Parti Québécois seats in this projection. And so this was the goal of how the CAQ would remain in power. It was to siphon away support from its supporters, especially the Parti Québécois.
Philippe J. Fournier, quickly here, if it wasn't for Anglophones and Allophones, the Quebec Liberal Party would be looking just as bad as the PQ. So,
absolutely.
What do you have to say about the Liberals and their fortunes right now, and if they can turn it around?
Well, if I may quote from my analysis, because I thought that was a very interesting tidbit. Right now, the CAQ's lead among Francophones is higher than the Liberals' lead among non-Francophones. When was the last time we could say that of any party? Not in my lifetime, and I don't think none in your lifetime either. Yeah. And so the CAQ leads by 40 points among Francophones. The Liberals dominate by 30 points among non-Francophones. And so the CAQ is doing pretty well among non-Francophones. About a quarter of non-Francophones would support the CAQ right now. And this is why some seats on the island of Montreal could be in danger of going from the Liberals to the CAQ, and also the seats in Laval. Laval has 6 seats. 5 of them right now are towards the Liberals. And right now, the projection says that the CAQ could win those seats, except for Chamédé, that will remain Liberal.
Okay, Philippe, we got to leave it there, and a shout out to the folks in Chamédé as we end off this one. Thanks so much for coming on this show. It's always so insightful, and there's just so much happening. Take care, Philippe, and we'll talk soon.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
There's Philippe J. Fournier from 338canada.com.